Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He's Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. We are celebrating. We don't have to go on talking about Taylor Swift and Kelsey. Gary, how are you?
Yeah, but there are some things to talk about outside of the actual game that came from this, and we'll get to the Super Bowl message from the president here in just a little bit. Just mind-boggling.
By the way, I did also. I thought it was a desperate attempt. Running across the field naked. Madonna needs to quit trying to get attention.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I noticed over the weekend, and it's every year it comes up, and when you just break it down, it's like the dumbest thing ever. But I saw it a lot Friday and a lot halfway through Saturday, just on social media, and it comes up every single year. We need to make the Monday after the Super Bowl a national holiday.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Well, we're going to have a hangover holiday?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, we talk about quiet quitting, but now there seems to be a sense of entitlement that I want to get drunk and I'm going to be hungover as hell on Super Bowl Monday, and I am entitled to a national holiday for it.
Well, as much as we are drinking and smoking weed as a society, shouldn't we get every Monday off? I mean, seriously. We could just make that case. Valentine's Day needs to be a day off.
Hey, man.
But you're single. I know, but I'm drunk.
Hey, man, I saw Fish on Sunday night.
Yeah.
And I want
exactly.
Can we get Mushroom Mondays off?
Mushroom Mondays. Welcome to Mushroom Monday here at Red Eye Radio. Things are going to get weird.
But it's because we've talked about it before and just, laughed it off. It's not going to become a national holiday,
no,
all right?
It's not.
But it's the fact, it's actually the sense of entitlement. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, think about this sense of entitlement is based on a hangover. Because the game, the game was over, even going into overtime.
Yeah.
Roughly it was over by 9:45 our time.
Right.
Because when I got up, just when I woke up, it just said, the final score had come in and Kansas City had won in overtime. I'm like, well, it's Central Time, 9:45. So
right.
Eastern, it's 10:45.
It was over before your local news came on.
Yeah, and come on. When I was young, we would stay up till 11:30 to watch the first 15-minute monologue of Johnny Carson. We didn't ask for any damn day off the next day.
No, in fact, when I was growing up, we'd stay up till midnight Central watching the entire Tonight Show. You know what I mean? And then you get up at whatever time you get up. A lot of people would stay out until 2 a.m. and get up at 6 a.m. to go into work.
2 a.m.?
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Western New York. The bars, you had to stop serving alcohol by 4 a.m. And leave by 4:30. You just went straight from the bar right to work.
Mm-hmm. Well, in
you didn't
Texas,
have time for breakfast.
Back then, I think the bars were only open until midnight. I think when I was, I don't know when they changed that to 2 a.m. But you would leave the bar and then go home and drink. And
I just thought it funny, though, because there are actually people that you could tell by their intensity of their posts that they really believe it should be a national holiday. We need to have the Monday after off, and I'm just chuckling, going, "You got to be kidding me!"
No, Well, one thing you won't hear much of, tomorrow's, man, I drank way too much Bud Light yesterday. So I don't.
Now the NFL's fully behind Bud Light.
Oh, they are. Yeah. And Bud Light's fully behind believing that they're going to make a comeback.
And the president asked that question last week. Said they're not a woke company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is the time that he actually said they're not a woke company.
Yeah. All right.
Excuse me, not the president.
The former president.
The former president,
Yes.
Trump.
Yeah.
Said that and then asked the question, should we, making the statement, because when he said they're not a woke company and asking the question, he's implying let's support Bud Light again.
Right.
And it's just like, and
Make Bud Light great again is not going to be a slogan that catches on, honestly. So,
yes.
yeah.
Yes. And we'll get to some of the things that happened over the weekend. Just some of my conservative friends, it's just, they're these, well, I'll say Republican friends that have been absolutely Trump supporters, still are, but you know what their final moment was? Him going after Nikki Haley, his husband.
Right.
And then the other one about that if you don't pay your dues, that actually encourage Russia to attack you. I mean, it's just, and it was funny because with all the stuff going on, one of the things you saw on Thursday is when will Trump say something stupid to take the focus off of Biden and put it on him?
After everything that came out with Biden last week in the special prosecutor's report.
And these are people that I've never seen ever criticize Trump, and they did, and then they were furious because they got blowback from Trump's loyal Trump supporters that he did nothing wrong, and they're like, "What, are you out of your mind?" And I looked at you when I was reading some of these because I started chuckling, and I went, "Well, we were in that position, but it was 8 years ago."
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you listen to the show, nobody is sacred on this show, and we do not practice political idolatry.
No,
I love the people that do. That call me up. Well, then you're not a blind patriot for Trump. I don't even know what that means.
Didn't know that was a thing.
Neither did I. It's like I voted for him twice. Odds are I'll vote for him again. But he does stupid things on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
And that was one of the stupid things that he did. But again, it's a binary. It looks like it's going to be a binary choice. And against here again with Biden. But it was just funny because they were just these, and I just noticed it. It's like, wow, they're losing it. And I went, wow, this is really interesting. It's like, you can support somebody, exactly what we have said. You can support somebody and still vote for them and not agree with the stupid things that they do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, grow up. And I'm laughing the whole time reading this going, we dealt with that a long time ago.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm sure
the nature of people when they respond to be a troll on social media. If you haven't digested that yet, then you're probably, I don't know. You got a lot of catching up to do in terms of the nature of social media. You shouldn't be surprised that everybody becomes a troll.
Yeah, that's true.
If they disagree with you, then all of a sudden it's troll season.
Well, some of my conservative friends, they said, yeah, but if I say something, I'm called a rhino. And I go, well, then say what we said when we got called a rhino. I don't know. When did the rhino thing become popular?
1873.
Was it during the first Trump camp? What was it about? Because I know that the establishment, the swamp, was the Republican leadership. Were they called rhino? Because I know
you mean the Trump version of rhino or the Trump era of rhino back and forth? Because rhino came about, I don't know how long ago, decades ago. I mean, it was back.
All right, then it would be the Trump supporter accusation that you're a rhino.
Yeah, right.
And I remember the first time that somebody said, they go, you guys are rhinos, and it was like, well, if we were Republicans, you would have a great point because we become much more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
We've stayed the same in our mindset. It's the Republican Party that's gone more liberal.
Right.
So if that's your determination, that's fine. Call me a rhino.
Mm-hmm.
I'll proudly say, absolutely. The Republican Party has and continues to go further left.
Yep.
And so, yeah, you're right. But, you and I've talked. I vote in the Republican primary here, but I'm non-committed. And that started way, way back in 2006. Right. You were here when you saw when because we were already talking about the fact of Republicans just spending way too much money way back then.
Right.
And people that I had supported just said, oh, to heck with it, but we can't do it right now. And here we are, still the same thing. We can't cut because we just can't do it right now. And we see the fiscal situation that we're in. But, it was let's go here to the president. This is Biden's Super Bowl message. All right, with everything going on, here's the president's Super Bowl message.
It's Super Bowl Sunday. If you're anything like me, you like to be surrounded by a snack or two while watching the big game. You know, when buying snacks for the game, you might have noticed one thing. Sports drinks bottles are smaller. A bag of chips has fewer chips, but they're still charging you just as much. And as an ice cream lover, what makes me the most angry is that ice cream cartons have actually shrunk in size, but not in price. I've had enough of what they call shrinkflation. It's a ripoff. Some companies are trying to pull a fast one by shrinking the products little by little and hoping you won't notice. Give me a break. The American public is tired of being played for suckers. I'm calling on companies to put a stop to this. Let's make sure businesses do the right thing now.
God is my witness.
That's all he's got. He really has nothing, and pointing basically, it's not shrinkflation, it's inflation.
It's inflation. It's all inflation.
And he, with his pen, is the one that drove it to unbelievable heights.
Yep.
And this is where we are. So the guy that is mostly responsible for the inflation is actually on a Super Bowl message complaining about the inflation he caused. Yeah. That's what you just heard there.
Yeah, he was, yeah. In essence, because, they want to use a new word as if shrinkflation is, somehow not related to inflation. Same thing. You either raise cost or you sell fewer things for the same amount.
And if you don't like it as a consumer, don't buy it.
Right.
Vote with your dollar. Don't buy it. If you don't like anything for any reason, in terms of any product, don't buy it.
Well, I'd like to ask the president, somebody would have to tell him, to respond, what's worse, raising prices or giving people a little less for the same amount of money? What's more immoral?
Right.
Answer that question.
And when's the last time you went shopping, Jack?
Yeah. But it's just the fact of it's like nobody is talking. Everybody's concerned about inflation, and not that you don't notice it.
Right.
But the fact is, he keeps talking about it. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
Think you're going to shame the companies?
Right. You're going to force companies. They have to be, a bag of chips has to be so big. Right. A carton of ice cream has to be so big. It must weigh so much, because they can't sell you something that says on the outside, it's this amount, and then it not be that amount. They have to put exactly what the weight is on there. We have laws that protect you. If they do that, they have broken those laws, and you have recourse. That's not what's going on here. He's complaining about the inflation he caused as if somebody else caused it, and the private sector really is responsible for it. So we should blame the private sector. And the private sector, if I were big business, I would get together an ad saying, the president recently complained about what people are calling shrinkflation. It's actually inflation. And as companies, we are struggling to make everything still affordable and competitive in the marketplace so that families can still afford to buy these items. That's the reality under President Joe Biden.
Yeah, you need to do what the oil and natural gas, I think it is, operators do every time Biden says something. They pound on him. They just pound on him. And you need to do it because you're exactly right. What he's saying, shrinkflation is inflation. There isn't something magically different.
Right. It's
only everything is caused by, when you talk about this, shrinkflation by inflation.
Right. And they wanted to jump on, it's a financial media term. They wanted to jump on it and then try and turn it around and make it about the private sector. It's not about the private sector. You did this. The private sector wants to be competitive at every turn. At every turn.
And he's got bags of chips and, sitting next to him and looks like a Gatorade or whatever. And it's just like, how?
Yeah, like he just went shopping.
Right. How? And how many takes, because they had him looking as energetic as possible. I wonder how many takes it took to do that.
Mm-hmm.
No,
No,
it's very limited. 46 seconds, I think, is the length of the actual ad.
right.
Might be less than that. Might be about 43
And
seconds.
you and I suspected it. We said, look, it's not going to be. He's doing campaign stops. I don't know how long that continues, but most of it is going to be recorded, pre-recorded, heavily edited messages. That's the only thing they're going to be able to get him to do. And a debate, that's out of the question.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Just because idling is common doesn't make it smart. Idling a diesel uses about a gallon of fuel per hour, which can cost you about $180 per week at $4.50 per gallon if your truck idles 8 hours a day. Idling easily can cost you a few thousand more in fuel alone per year, not including the added engine maintenance expense that results from excessive idling. Harder on your truck's engine than highway driving. In addition to operating costs, many governments impose no idling laws and regulations with fines as high as $25,000. Instead, there are many alternatives: an extra blanket for cold temperatures, window screens for when the weather is warm, bunk heaters, and various auxiliary power unit options abound in this day and age too, many powered just by batteries. Otherwise, diesel and gas gensets burn far less fuel than your truck's engine. Research options to find your fit. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I got to play this.
All right.
Mayorkas on Meet the Press. All right. And ask the question about Biden's cognitive state. Because this is, whether it was him or Jen Psaki over the weekend, I mean, the gaslighting was just big time. Here we go.
The most difficult part about a meeting with President Biden is preparing for it, because he is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
And you're smoking weed.
Oh, wait. Maybe.
If you honestly believe that.
Maybe Mayorkas should get a hangover Super Bowl day off today.
Wow. I'd like for him to get a lot of time off, frankly.
I mean, my God, it just...
Wow. Yeah.
And meanwhile, with the whole thing, because now you saw over the weekend, all right, a vote for Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris. And so this went viral again. I'm playing this strictly for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Today is today. And yesterday was today yesterday. Tomorrow will be today tomorrow. So live today. So the future today will be as the past today, as it is tomorrow.
There was no AI in that. I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
My God.
Oh, my gosh. Implosion. Yeah. There are so many things going on right now that are, it is so hard to keep everything on the table. There are so many things on the table.
I know.
It's just insane.
I know.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio. from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. What's interesting since we were last on the air is the fact checking done from the president's, hastily put together. It wasn't really a statement and very short press conference on Thursday night. Mm-hmm. And I just want to play here this. I'm not going to play the entire clip, but just a couple of things as they went on for 4 minutes on CNN talking about the president and the clear lies, and the absolute clear lies that he made about the special counsel's report.
While one thing that President Biden said is basically that he stored the documents in filing cabinets that could be locked. Let's listen.
All the stuff that was in my home was in filing cabinets that were either locked or able to be locked.
Daniel?
Just not true, John. This report from the special counsel includes photos. Those photos include shots of a box just sitting in President Biden's Delaware garage. The special counsel described it as a badly damaged box sitting amid household detritus. So there was some material that was in cabinets, locked or lockable, as the president said, but all of it certainly not. And that open, unsealed, damaged box included, according to the special counsel, highly sensitive, top secret material about the war in Afghanistan.
Okay, another claim that President Biden made: none of the documents were highly classified. Let's listen.
None of it was high classified. Didn't have any of that red stuff on it. You know what I mean? Around the corners? None of that.
Daniel?
That claim that he didn't have any material that was quote-unquote high classified is also not true, John. The special counsel's report says that the president possessed multiple highly classified documents that were indeed marked as being highly classified documents, including some marked as top secret / SCI, sensitive compartmented information. That is a very high level of classification. For example, special counsel Hur discussed 2 top secret documents about Afghanistan found in that open, unsealed, damaged box in the garage, one of which Hur said contains highly sensitive info about military programs, and another that contains info about sensitive intelligence and sources and methods. Now, it's not clear, John, if any of those Biden documents had those colored borders we saw on classified docs that former President Trump had, which I think is what President Biden was referring to when he talked about red around the corners. But still, whatever coloring these documents had, the special counsel says they were clearly marked as highly classified. And then I should add, Hur also said that investigators' analysis of Biden's own handwritten notes from his time as vice president showed that these notebooks also contained highly classified info, though those were not marked. And Hur said a sampling of 37 excerpts found that, quote, 8 are top secret with sensitive compartmented information, 7 of which include information concerning human intelligence sources, plus 6 others that were top secret.
Top secret material, right? And he said again, false, because Biden's making the case that's not what the special counsel said, and he goes, false. Here it is, right here, and he goes through the actual quote, and that's what you're really dealing with,
right?
Here is the fact that they only had one recourse, and that was to lie about everything, because that's what they do with this White House, and I'm not saying that from the point of view of a partisan. It's simply the fact they pathologically lie about everything. You heard Mayorkas when he talked about how he had to prepare himself. Well, maybe Mayorkas does. Maybe I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. Maybe Mayorkas's cognitive ability to think like a normal human being has affected him also when he discusses things with Trump, because either he's a pathological liar or he's living in his own delusional, cognitively challenged mind.
Yeah, maybe.
From the things that he actually says, which are just not true. Reading here from Jonathan Turley, he said, what was striking, however, last week was a degree to which President Biden and his staff spent the week putting out clearly false statements in an administration that has pushed for censorship of citizens accused of disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. is that malware or something? The president openly lied about his conduct and the report. President Biden, for example, stated the special counsel report found he did not willfully retain material. It found the opposite repeatedly. He stated that he did not disclose classified information to his ghostwriter. Special counsel found precisely the opposite. Biden said the material was not highly classified with that red stuff. In fact, Hur found that the material was highly sensitive, including an Afghanistan-related memo from the National Security Advisor to President Obama in 2009, marked top secret SCI, sensitive compartmented information. Biden stated that all the material was kept in locked or lockable filing cabinets. That was a lie, as the pictures vividly demonstrated. Hur found material in unlocked areas and virtually spilling out of torn boxes in his garage. What is notable is that Biden works almost entirely off teleprompters, reading statements clearly crafted by his staff. That would indicate that some of those comments were written by the staff. Even in the press conference on Friday, Ian Sams, spokesperson for the White House counsel's office, ran into a skeptical reporter in the form of John Decker, the White House correspondent for Gray Television. Decker is a former head of the White House Correspondents Association and one of my former students. That's from Jonathan Turley. Decker is a gold standard for reporters and has always been objective, tough, and fair. His approach has not changed from the Trump to the Biden administration. Decker challenged Sam on coming to the podium to address the president's statement and proceeding to make a false claim that this is the first special counsel to end his investigation without charges. So why would the White House risk looking like it was going full Baghdad Bob in denying readily observable facts? Because this is no real risk. The reason was evidenced a day after the report. While usually supportive outlets had to acknowledge president's false claims, media figures from MSNBC to CNN quickly fell into line and launched a full attack on her, often repeating identical words used by the White House about his observations being gratuitous. The problem is her, not a president who not only appeared confused in the press conference, but openly lied about various established facts. We have written previously how the level of advocacy and bias in the press has created a danger of a de facto state media in the United States. It is possible to have such a system by consent rather than by coercion. The Biden White House has become more open in its marching orders to the media, including a letter drafted by the Biden's White House legal counsel's office calling for major media to ramp up their scrutiny of House Republicans. So there you go. The Decker-Sams exchange is key in this regard. As I previously noted, Sams is now actively managing a media campaign to blunt investigations into the president's conduct and alleged corruption by the family. As Decker noted, he is not a lawyer, but has used that office to put out official statements or an official stamp on these false statements. That could prove precarious in the weeks to come as the House explores impeachment allegations against the president. The use of the White House staff for such purposes has been cited in past impeachment articles. Really interesting stuff, because the thing is, though, they're not convincing everybody. You don't have, with all the media defending the president, when you have 76% of people believe that the president has some kind of, mental problems, cognitive problems. That's the key there. You're not going to win with what the special counsel came out and to attack the attorney general. And the special counsel, number one, aids Trump tremendously.
Well, it's interesting because thinking about it over the weekend, so you put everything that's on the table working against Biden, set aside for the moment, the economy, and that's not nothing. But any geopolitical situation, and also that's not nothing. If you look at the Hunter situation, you look at the report from last week, and you look at what the GOP is doing. with the Hunter situation. You look at the fact, include the fact that the majority of the rank-and-file Democrats don't want him to be the nominee. Look, at Van Jones was saying it, honestly, what was it, last week before, when he said they need to put Biden back in the basement. We're paraphrasing that, but they don't need him out there on the campaign trail. They need to hide him. This is Van Jones, someone on the far, far left on CNN. I think if he were speaking honestly, he would have said, and maybe he did at some point and I didn't hear it, Joe Biden needs to step down and so someone else right now can step in and have enough momentum. That's how they think. This is what they feel right now, the majority of Democrats. And with the effort of, again, the First Lady over the weekend, trying to, they're trying to essentially build this fortress around Joe Biden, and you're not going to be able to do it. And so I'm thinking, okay, so the forces that are working against him in this regard, the special prosecutor, her, and that report and the damage that's done there, which is huge, and you really can't debate it. Him trying to, hours after the report came out, the president trying to defend himself from that report just made it worse. And so if there were a concerted effort by a number of individuals to push in that direction, then it would be playing out probably as intended. He's immediately, because of his defiance that he's always had, which has only grown, going to step up and say, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. And then he's going to commit a number of missteps along the way. And it's going to play out very quickly and rapidly over and over again in front of all of America. And if there were a group of people looking to push him out, and this was part of it, the special prosecutor's report, then his defense, his behavior, his defiance is helping it play out as the plan would have to include.
And the obvious gaslighting, because when you get like I said, the Mayorkas and other people that are in the administration that come out and say, no, you have to understand, he's the most challenging person. When Mayorkas said, oh, no, you have to prepare yourself because this guy asks detailed questions.
Right.
And he's really and then you talk to, Kevin McCarthy did that, the New York Times event back in late November and said, you can't even talk to the guy. You have to have, he's got to have a card in his hand.
Right.
And if it's not on the card, you don't talk to the president about it.
Right.
It's got to be on the card.
Right.
And so the thing is, everyone, we had talked, last week about, Jay Leno and, his wife. Mm-hmm. We've talked about members of our family that have had cognitive problems that were caused by dementia. Almost every person out there probably knows somebody in their family, probably mostly older, that has some type of cognitive problems due to dementia. They recognize the signs.
Yeah.
And so this is something that is obvious to Americans because it's something that they've lived and they've seen it in older people. And so this type of gaslighting is almost an insult to you as an individual because you look at it and you just say, because I've seen more articles now, I'll read some of them coming up here, that really go after the family now.
And that's something that we have done repeatedly, and we did again last week when the special prosecutor's report came out. Look, it is the responsibility of the family to care for this individual, and that's their first and foremost responsibility. They know the truth.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, what happens this week? Biden, the special counsel. Where do the Republicans go to kick off a Monday? We'll get to that. Also, the Robert F. Kennedy Super Bowl ad, which I just don't get. It's like old newspapers, and instead of JFK's picture, they have Robert Kennedy in there. And it doesn't make any. You sit there after it's done. You say, you spent $7 million for that. What are you? Your name's out there. You know, it may get your name out, but there was no message actually, in my opinion,
What's
behind
the takeaway? That's the biggest thing. You've got to get people motivated from that message. And that message did not accomplish that.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, you probably have a little problem that if the first political ad you run, I mean, the first major political ad you run is on the Super Bowl, you spend $7 million for it, and then almost immediately after, you have to apologize for it. This Robert Kennedy ad, I'm so sorry if the Super Bowl advertisement caused anyone in my family pain. The ad was created and aired by the American Value Super PAC without any involvement or approval from my campaign. FEC rules prohibit super PACs from consulting with me or my staff. I love you all. God bless you. Now, he was criticized because a few hours before, he put together a pinned tweet that he actually has there. Our momentum is growing. It's time for an independent president to heal the divide in our country. And he plays the ad beneath it.
Yeah.
Then a couple hours later, I've got nothing to do with it. Well, apparently you approved of it because you posted it on your Twitter feed a few hours before your apology.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing because I did wonder, okay, when I was playing it early on, I could not see who was the sponsor of it when I was playing it during our pre-show meeting. And what I was looking for is at the end, did he say anything that he approved of it? And it doesn't exist. He doesn't say it. So I knew, okay, this was a PAC that ran the ad.
Right. Because they're required to say their name and that they approve it at the end of the ad if it's theirs.
If it's the campaign. And so basically it's old newspapers. And instead, old newspapers and old newspaper stories with the headlines. And instead of JFK, they have Robert Kennedy. And number one, I'm thinking to myself, unless you're my age, does it even relate in any way to you?
First thing I thought of.
And so, it related to me in that the headlines seemed familiar from way back in that time when it was JFK. But at the end of the ad, I was lost going, what's your point? You just spent $7 million. What's your point? What separates you except the name? And it looks like you're attempting to piggyback off your uncle.
And
off your late uncle, your assassinated uncle.
Right. And you're also assuming that people will remember, that they will recall that about your father, about your uncle, about those years, about who they were, about that era, about what that stood for, and then carry that all the way to 2024 and apply that to you. Well, as you mentioned, you got to be a little bit older for that to mean something, unless you're a history buff, and you've learned it otherwise. And then for that to, again, carry and apply to you, which for some it may, and on some items it may, but it doesn't necessarily. And that's the point of trying to, look at it and say, because you could say that also, I don't believe RFK Jr. Is responsible for any bad things that his other uncle, Ted Kennedy, the late Ted Kennedy, may have done
Right.
or not done,
Right.
or what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't carry those and apply those, and the reason you don't politically is because then you have to answer for them. If you go back and then you want that to, carry forward and be a part of who you are, then you also have to answer for any baggage that may come along with any of that as you apply that. You're trying to set a standard for, yourself. And I don't think part of his rise recently has been, just the populist thing. None of the above, the whole none of the above thing. But it's also been the name recognition. But quite frankly, that's not the biggest driver. That in and of itself
No, not at all.
is
no.
not the biggest driver.
No.
And I don't know why you would include that in the ad. In fact, I would insist on not putting it in the ad. I know that he can't work with the PAC. He can't communicate with the PAC. And I don't know what the PAC is trying to accomplish of trying to, again, associate the two. You could say, you might be able to pull up or pull some of the similarities of the era of what the times were and what the concerns were. I think in terms of civil rights that helped to create Title IX for women. And what's going on today and everything else. I mean, if you wanted to do that and you were a Kennedy, and you were a PAC and you were thinking, okay, how do we take that and relate it? Then I guess you could do that. But quite frankly, even then, you're going way too far. You're walking way too far. You need to cut the fat and get to the point. The point has been the biggest driver for RFK Jr. has been the whole populist thing, none of the above. And I don't know. That's not going to get him elected. The question is, how much of a spoiler is he going to be? That's really the only question.
Well, I think that the one thing, being, I guess you would say more anti-COVID vax with a lot of other vaccinations thrown in.
Yeah, right.
Was one thing that got people. And this is the one thing that I wondered about him attaching himself to his father. Now, this is the first thought that goes through my mind. And again, I'm older. I remember those times. I'm old enough to remember Kennedy. Most people aren't.
Right.
But the other thing is, his, anti-Ukraine stance, and that the United States should not be helping Ukraine as much as we're helping, which, again, is going through the Republican Party big time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're trying to make that comparison, whether you want to call it more isolationist or whether you wish to call it being more careful with the dollars that we spend and not trusting this administration with our dollars or anything that they say, because really the big problem with Ukraine, the whole Ukraine-Putin thing, in my opinion, and this is not a opinion held by a significant portion of Republicans who seem to be warming up, at least to me, too uncomfortably to Putin, because he's nobody to look at as any type of hero. And the United States and the goals of the United States are much better than the goals of a Vladimir Putin.
Right,
and the history of Putin, if you know him, he's one vicious, he's one vicious person.
Right.
He will do whatever he needs to do to get done. American values are head over heels over anything about Putin. But take that out of it, and we'll get into that later on because the whole Tucker Carlson interview, we've talked a little bit about it the other day. But the fact is, his father was the one that confronted The Cold War. You think I went through I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
I remember I was only a kid, but I remember when it happened.
Right.
Then I remember that and the Great Blackout. I remember very well. But the Cuban Missile Crisis, I mean, people thought it might be the end.
Yeah.
It was really, really intense.
Right.
It was a lot more intense than Greta telling you they're not going to be around in 10 years because of climate change.
The Cuban Missile Crisis was real.
And so if you look at aggressive foreign policy, which, again, RFK is running where he is not, and to promote, basically imprint him where his father's picture were in these newspaper ads, in the TV commercial, just to me didn't make any sense as to what is your objective for doing it, because what you're claiming is, in a way, you're actually not like the traditional Kennedys, and you believe that the Cold War, that even your family was involved in escalating. And by the way, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just talking about the politics of it, because I think Kennedy in confronting the Soviet Union, as he did, was the correct thing. But he's moving to the path that the United States is the bad actor, not a Putin, or Zelensky's the bad actor, not Putin. When the fact is, you can have bad actors on both sides, but what's in the best interest of the United States? What's more of a worry for us, Ukraine or Russia? The problem is nobody's having that discussion. It's all based on, well, either Ukraine fully sucks or total Ukraine without question. There doesn't seem to be, especially in our political narrative, exactly, the media over there analyzing exactly in a trustworthy way what's going on, and you can't trust anything from this administration.
Right.
But I just think that tying yourself to your father when you've come out very aggressively against the status quo of a Cold War which still exists today, and you're trying to compare yourself to JFK, I just think sends out contradictory messages to people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there is a very simple approach to that. Look, you do have to be ambiguous in the political, especially if you're talking about a Super Bowl ad, because you're introducing some thought for consideration of RFK Jr. as, to people, to a lot of people for the first time. Please consider this guy. Is the approach, and a lot of people are seeing that for the first time, and the point of doing that during the Super Bowl is to get the greatest reach you can get on any television event. And it would be essentially kind of the voice of reason thing in today's political spectrum. In today's political environment, it is littered and tarnished by the cult of personality, and it is time for a voice of reason. That it doesn't have, we are not a world of one or the other or blah, 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 because that's kind of his message that he's putting out. I'm not saying I agree with that message. I'm saying that's his message. And the PAC didn't promote his message. The ad didn't promote his message.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And so you do that, and it is time for, and basically, you're not saying none of the above. But no longer should we be, especially in today's world where it is tribal, today's world where it is a cult of personality, we need to get back to solving the issues. Again, I know for our audience that sounds like it's a lot of blah, 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 and we've heard it before, but this has been his message, and how you couldn't get that right for your Super Bowl ad, that's a $7 million toilet flush.
Yeah, we'll play that ad. And another ad that didn't get played in the Super Bowl, but Trump put it out over the weekend, and the Trump people put it out over the weekend, and we'll show the difference between what we believe. I believe the Trump ad was a very effective ad.
Right.
And this ad I don't believe is effective. Coming up, 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Owner-operators with authority generally have two options when it comes to sourcing freight. Brokers on the spot market or directly from the source, the shipper. As any trucker with relatively recent experience with spot freight knows, the highs of working the load boards can be really high. On the other side of that coin, however, when the market flips in favor of shippers, it can be tough to keep your business afloat working with brokers. The smallest carriers with direct customers, however, can hang on through tough times or even prosper as long as demand for their customers' product remains at least somewhat stable. Owner-operators in it for the long haul make direct business with customers a principal goal. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, so I'm going to play two ads here. This one ad is the Robert Kennedy ad that ran during the Super Bowl. Now, there is no narrator here.
Right.
All you hear in the background, you hear an old Kennedy. Now, it's either a replication of an old Kennedy commercial, it's actually a Kennedy commercial, or an old JFK commercial where they just, instead of JFK, they stuck Robert Kennedy's face in it. Here it is. Okay.
For president who's seasoned through and through, a man who's old enough to know and young enough to do. Well, up to you.
And so what you have is you have just different pictures and looks like political ads that were in the 60s inside newspapers, except instead of JFK, there's RFK. And that's all it does the whole time. It's just Kennedy, 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 Kennedy. That's it. And it just shows his picture instead of JFK.
That's honestly, that would leave anyone, actually, whether you know the history intimately, whether you lived through it or not, it leaves you going, what was that? You should walk away from a Super Bowl ad, any Super Bowl ad, going, that was a great commercial. I mean, that's just the nature of Super Bowl ads. A political ad that is placed in the Super Bowl should say, wow, they made a solid point, and make you think about it.
Yeah.
And his whole message was totally set aside for what? Nostalgia? Nobody cares about nostalgia.
No, you can't. I would suggest that Robert Kennedy doesn't say, I believe all these things will bring Camelot back.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to go.
Yeah, that's not going to fly.
Now,
and you know, because it is, everything has changed. Everything's changed since the last presidential election year. Your message, what is your message? What is his message? If you're a PAC and you don't know your candidate's message, you're in trouble.
The message has never been, I'll be JFK.
Ever. It hasn't. It hasn't.
In fact, if you look at it, and just some instant analysis here, you can tell me whether you agree with it or not. I've always gotten the feeling, the sense, that he wishes to separate himself from the Kennedy family.
Yes. No,
he's never officially said it, but that I'm not the old kind of Kennedy.
In fact, and I think it's, I would advise him, anybody with a last name Kennedy, to do this, especially if it's followed by Junior, to separate yourself completely. And I think he has done that, and it does feel like he did it deliberately. And it also, because the benefit of doing that is to introduce yourself as a new choice.
Right.
Not an old choice. And that's the thing, is that, yeah, you may have the same name and name recognition, blah, 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 but that means nothing. You're dismissing that. You're saying it's not about that. You're not focusing on that. You're focusing on a new message in a world of tribal politics where it is one or the other to the extreme. America is not represented by somebody who is the voice of reason. That's just off the top of my head.
And if you look at it, and again, this comes from my age and being exposed to the Kennedys, it's almost as if what he was trying to message to me, who remembers JFK, is I'm not JFK and I'm not Teddy.
Right, exactly.
Because Teddy was one really involved in liberal politics, where a lot of people would say, well, Teddy really wasn't JFK.
Right.
But I think he doesn't wish to be marketed as either of those.
But
a new Kennedy.
Right, exactly.
And that ad doesn't
do it
cut
at all. No.
Music reviewers and sometimes political commentators, Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, I just say spending $7 million when you're an independent candidate. And I know it's the PAC doing it, but still spending that kind of money, I just don't see that ad. Now, here's an ad that did not run in the Super Bowl. Don't know where he put it, but the Make America Great PAC put this out against Biden over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
This they should have run in the Super Bowl. This, I believe, would have been effective for that Super Bowl audience, that for a story that at that point would just be about 3 days old.
Yeah.
And here it is.
It's official. Joe Biden mishandled classified documents, and now his two-tier justice system is on full display. The Department of Justice found Joe retained and disclosed classified documents, including matters of national security and intelligence sources and methods. He put America's national security at risk and then lied about it.
I did not share classified information. I did not share.
And after all that, Biden's special counsel still declined to indict him because he was, quote, an elderly man with a poor memory and diminished faculties who didn't even remember when he was vice president. Joe Biden, unfit to stand trial, unfit to lead America.
And you and I had said that was on Thursday. We said that's what you use, and so we appreciate the Trump PAC paying attention to us. But we have said, I mean,
exactly.
that's if you're unfit to stand trial, are you fit to run America? Because most people understand, wow, you're unfit to stand trial. Did I say stand trial or jury trial?
You said stand trial.
Okay, stand trial. Yeah, you're unfit to stand trial, which you get to the point of people start thinking at that point, okay, are you saying that the person isn't competent, isn't sane? You know, what exactly are you saying here? And so that keeps all the questions open. But that question, if you're not fit to stand trial, are you fit to lead America? Or you make the statement as they did there.
Right.
Joe Biden, they say he's not fit to stand trial. Well, then he's unfit to lead America. You make that conclusion afterwards. So on a topic that's relatively still new, came out, you can really say Thursday night into Friday is when the story came out, and to have that, and they had the video cut. Oh, and when they would say Joe Biden, looked at, Joe Biden had, the top secret information, they would highlight it right from the report.
Right.
That was highlighted, electronically, so when you're watching the ad, you can see that all.
Right.
And it was a very effective commercial because you're getting to what the special counsel said, and you've already got roughly over 2/3 of America that agrees with you, probably closer to 3/4 of America that agrees with you.
Right.
Or is leaning in that direction, and that doesn't help at all. So I don't know where they played that. That might have been, if you're looking to put out a message to a mass audience, to spend that kind of money, for advertising, it's got to be effective. And effective politically right now, what do you want? You do it while you strike while the iron's hot, while the report is out. The second time you might want to do it is after because this is what I expect from Republicans this week. They're going to say we want the special counsel to sit down before the House and go through.
Yeah.
We want the report here. And I would do this. Here's what Biden said. Here's what his spokespeople said. Here's what you wrote. Are they telling the truth?
Right.
Or are you telling the truth? And what's in the actual transcript? We want the transcript there because that's what defeats. And I don't believe that Merrick Garland's office would have allowed that report to go out if they couldn't back it up with the transcript.
Okay, couple of things. You said that during the pre-show meeting that not only did Merrick Garland's office put it out, they put it out pretty quickly.
Yeah, they did.
And which is a great point. But then what you just said, and something I was thinking about since you said that, and that is the defense of the president is now not just that it's untrue, but on a couple of things that the report didn't say that, but just in saying, you don't even have to go that far, just in saying that it's not true, that the report is wrong, you're accusing the special prosecutor of getting it wrong and or lying.
And then the attorney general, after reading it and studying it, lets out what he knows is a pack of lies, too.
And that's it. If the attorney general receives the report, takes the report in, digests it, and looks at it for what it is, and anyone, it doesn't matter what your experience, can look at that and see what it says. He's unfit to stand trial. He's guilty. He broke the law. He's unfit to stand trial, which is massive. If you're the attorney general, the first thing you do is you call the special prosecutor and say, we need to chat because you can't be wrong about this, and I can't release this if you're wrong about this. What you're putting in this report is especially damaging. If it's true, it's especially damaging to you if it's not true. And I'm the attorney general. This report is owed to me. And if I put this out, I own it. So that's the scenario right here. Biden rejecting it, saying, it's all lies or it's not true. And you've got two people.
Political hit job.
Exactly. You've got two people, the special prosecutor, her, and Merrick Garland, the attorney general, that now own this report because Merrick Garland released it. He doesn't have to release that. I don't know if I mentioned that part. Yeah. He doesn't have to release that report. Now, eventually, it would likely be known in today's world. There's too much curiosity. Yep. The opposition party is going to look to make it known.
And politically, he had to.
But he did, and he turned it around quickly. He released it quickly. So the point is that on one side you've got Merrick Garland seemingly unafraid of what's in the report. Now, he's not going to own what Biden did, according to the special prosecutor and what the special prosecutor laid out in the report. And there it is, as you mentioned, politically, you've got to release it. But if it were wrong, if there were any question about the special prosecutor, her, getting it wrong, whether deliberately lying or putting things in there by mistake, if you wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, then the attorney general, we know Merrick Garland, we know his recent history and his behavior, and you can't convince me he would let that report out right away. He would want to review it with special prosecutor her and say, listen, this doesn't add up here. The point being is that, of course it adds up. Of course it's accurate. And of course, her and Attorney General Merrick Garland have to wash their hands of this president and can't carry the weight of this president any longer in that regard. They can't carry that, and regardless of what they are concerned with their own future politically. The last thing you can do is step out and try and cover something up in a special prosecutor report as an attorney general. And the last thing you would want to do as a special prosecutor is lie about something like that when you know that this report is going to be split into slivers as it's taken apart. Neither of those individuals can risk that. Biden is going to be defiant all day.
You know, you and I have asked this question, and nobody has been able to answer this one. What happened, for example, with David Weiss? Why were they willing to allow Hunter Biden to skate by without anything?
Right.
And it was Weiss, claiming was in charge, and nobody was telling him what to do otherwise, and FBI agents disagreed with that. And all of a sudden, Weiss going after Hunter Biden now, and also this special counsel, which, again, when you it's bizarre because it's just a continuation of the bizarreness in our society right now and dealing in D.C. That he comes up and says, well, these are the crimes. No, these are all crimes, but we're not going to prosecute because, we believe it's different than Trump's thing, but also because he's losing his faculties, which is his cognitive ability is going down.
Right.
And then not only that, but the fact is a jury might not convict someone in his state.
Right.
And it's like, okay, what you're saying is the jury would find him unfit to try.
Right.
And therefore a prosecutor.
Right.
Well, you're the prosecutor in saying he's unfit to try.
Yeah.
So if he's unfit to try, if he's unfit to stand trial, the question that people ask is he unfit to be president of the United States? Now, if you're a loyal Democrat partisan, you're torn between that. It's like, can we get him out now and put somebody in like Newsom? Because then, yeah, he is unfit to run again.
Look, you have something tangible. If you're in that position, as a liberal who wants him to not run, you have something tangible for the first time.
But then you have the White House coming out full bore saying absolutely gaslighting and lying and saying this couldn't be further from the truth. And then Mayorkas, this guy, you've got to prepare because this guy is so incredibly sharp and detail-oriented. Stop gaslighting us.
Exactly.
Like, you don't know that?
Well, and I think that's where you are right now, because I think there is an effort, certainly a wish, by a lot of very high-profile and powerful players in the Democratic Party for him to not be the nominee. But the problem with an effort in this regard is that you're not going to, we've been saying since the beginning, you're not going to push a Joe Biden, as defiant as he is, into anything he doesn't want to do. It doesn't matter. And the harder you try to do that, the more of a mess and fallout you create with all of this culminating. Think about that. How long would it take? Because Biden's not going to step down on his own. So you've got to keep pushing. If that were what is happening, it's a group of people basically now, okay, we got something. Let's pressure. He's going to become more defiant. And then the fallout from it all is so bad. It's not good anyway, but it gets worse because of his defiance and the fact that it is going to be nothing short of a massive implosion.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, you did have some Democrats come out and go, oh, boy, this isn't good for Biden. We'll get to that coming up. And, well, you're the actor that you've talked about a lot, Michael Rapaport.
Yeah.
just fascinating over the weekend. I mean, it's like everything that's happening right now, it's like the lights just going off in his head. He well-known liberal for years, and some of the stuff he's talking about, he goes, look, I helped spread the Charlottesville hoax.
Wow.
He actually said, he goes,
I didn't see that part.
He said, I was wrong. It didn't happen.
Wow.
It's like, yeah.
Well, okay. That's a huge turn. By the way, that would be, I don't know, there may be more, but along with Barry Weiss, and of course Barry Weiss gets a different consideration being a journalist, we believe a true journalist, and a liberal, as far as we know, still maybe liberal on other things. I don't know where Barry Weiss is. If she considers herself to be a liberal or conservative, not the point, but she said she was wrong about Trump. She said, I think she used the words Trump was right. But if you think about Michael Rapaport, it's pop culture. He's an actor. But he was somebody who, as a liberal, was very loud, very vocal. As he mentions, part of spreading the lie about Charlottesville. And to walk that back and say, I was part of that and taking ownership of it, it's a huge step. That's a big deal. We don't see that from other liberals that are saying, wow, the far left is blah, 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 when they were a part of that then, and right. They don't say, listen, I was a part of it. I thought this way back then. I don't think that way anymore. They're not doing that. And Rapaport seemingly is, at least on that front, on the whole spreading of the lie.
He's a small but growing number of people out there that were on the left saying, what in the world's been going on?
What's going on?
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. No, Super Bowl Monday is not a national holiday off, so get up and get to work.
Come on. Get with it.
So reading here from the New York Post editorial on Jill Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Jill, not Joe.
Right.
So Jill Biden has lashed out at special counsel Robert Hur over his report that let her husband off the hook for willfully retaining and sharing classified files due to the commander-in-chief's total lack of recall while being questioned. It was predictable. I hope that you can imagine how it felt to read that attack, not just as Joe's wife, but as Beau's mother, the First Lady, lamented in a campaign email over the weekend. I don't know what this special counsel was trying to achieve. I can't imagine why someone would try to use our son's death to score political points. Spare us. The president was the one who brought up his late son, Beau, during his interview with her. It's what he always does when he's in trouble. Every time he feels the political heat, he finds a way to turn the spotlight onto his life's tragedies and disarm his antagonists. It is his shield against accountability, and he has wielded it to great effect his entire career. You hate to attribute base, cynical motives to anyone, but Biden walking through the family graveyard on his way out of mass while waiting cameras will capture the perfect, poignant image of a grief-burdened man among the tombstones does tug at the idea. It is uncanny how these images always emerge when he's in hot water. Sometimes in Washington, you can never be too cynical. As for Hur's conclusion that a jury would probably acquit Biden because he has mush for brains, that he's a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. That really got Jill and hubby hot under the collar. My memory is fine, thundered the president in his Thursday night press conference, and the Sunday shows were full of VIPs saying how astute and sharp and on the ball he is. Might even be half true. Sly Joe from Scranton wouldn't be the first crook who fakes memory loss to avoid incriminating himself when law enforcement comes knocking. It worked. He didn't get indicted. What's he complaining about? Well, you and I asked the question the other day. We said, well, is he trying to make the point that he is fit for trial?
Right. Because if he is, the special prosecutor that also reported that he has broken the law.
Then you have here, I have from Breitbart, Biden's legal team went to the Justice Department over what they viewed as unnecessary digs at his memory. Biden's personal attorney said Sunday he went to both the special counsel and the attorney general to register concerns over what he viewed to be pejorative and unnecessary digs at the president's memory. This is a report that went off the rails, said Bob Bauer on CBS's Face the Nation. It's a shabby work product. The special counsel was investigating whether the president mishandled classified documents during his previous positions as president and senator, and found this week that no criminal charges were warranted. But in building his argument for why no charges were laid down on him, they described Joe as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. They went on then to cite examples where investigators said the president's memory lapsed, including over when his older son, Beau, had died. In particular, comments about Beau Biden enraged the president, who has been very open about his grief over his son's death, speaking often of him. How the hell dare he raise that, Biden questioned angrily. Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, it wasn't any of their damn business. Now, according to the transcript, according to the New York Post, Biden brought up his son.
Yeah.
It wasn't the special counsel.
Right.
That was the first that I've read that, where the New York Post is saying, no, he brought him up. I didn't see that anywhere else. Wow. And by the way, Jill, too, when she complained, did it on a campaign email to raise money when she complained. Bauer, who was married to Biden's top White House aide, Anita Dunn, said he raised concerns over the inclusion of those details to both her and Garland, which he viewed to be a violation of the Justice Department's norms that essentially work to avoid prejudicing the public against people who are not charged with a crime.
Mm-hmm.
But that appeal failed. It's evident. And by the way, remember, they saw it beforehand.
Right.
So it wasn't after it was published they went. They went because the Justice Department, like the day before, went and said, here's what we're releasing.
Right.
And so they were able to complain. They saw it before the public saw it. Former Trump Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein defended the report on CNN's State of the Union. When you conduct a criminal investigation, some of the information that you uncover and some of the things you evaluate don't necessarily put the subject in a favorable light, and ordinarily that's not publicized, and I think that's a good thing. It's unfortunate that the special counsel process results in public reports that expose things that otherwise would remain sealed in the Department of Justice files. The president sat down with the investigators over several hours, just as the October 7th attack on Israel by Hamas had happened. He said he answered the questions truthfully and to the best of his knowledge. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. But, they tried to stop it, and the Department of Justice said nope. And one wonders what's going on there fully. We'll get to that. But I want to get to, this was on Sunday Morning Futures. John Radcliffe, former director of national security for Trump and former congressman, was on there and was asked what he thought about the report.
Well, Maria, I think that, contrary to the spin from the Biden White House and the media that's trying to help them, Joe Biden, I think the most important takeaway was not cleared of wrongdoing. The special counsel clearly found that Joe Biden broke the law, that Joe Biden broke the law repeatedly, that Joe Biden broke the law willfully, and that he broke the law knowingly, that he committed multiple felonies under multiple statutes, including the Espionage Act, that he met every element of those crimes. Now, where things kind of go astray is, despite all of those crimes, the special counsel, in this case, Robert Hur, pulled a Jim Comey. He essentially said, just as Jim Comey did with Hillary Clinton, that even though Joe Biden committed every element of every crime that he set forth, that he wasn't going to recommend charges for Joe Biden. And he offered two reasons for that. One of them is a legitimate consideration. The other one was not. The one that was not was he said, well, we're not going to charge him because he's cooperated. I think you and I have talked about this before, Maria. Cooperation is not a defense under the law. It's something that can only be taken into account by a judge at sentencing. It's as if, bank robbers don't get to return stolen property and not get charged because they cooperated with the government. The only legitimate basis for Robert Hur not to recommend charges is the non-compos mentis defense, which is essentially that Joe Biden was too mentally infirmed to stand trial. The problem for that, of course, is it creates the catch-22 of if he's too mentally infirmed to stand trial, then how is he not too mentally infirmed to run the country? And so I think that that's going to cause political damage from now until Election Day for Joe Biden. But, Maria, I think that this is actually going to have a significant legal impact, beyond the public's perception of a two-tiered system of justice, an actual impact on the same case and the same charges against Donald Trump. And the reason I say that, Maria, is if I'm the federal judge down in Florida looking at this, Judge Cannon, I'm thinking, why is this case even in my court? And the next time special counsel Jack Smith shows up in my courtroom, my question for him would be, look, I've got a 300-page report from another special counsel from the same Biden Justice Department who says that the target in that case, Mr. Biden himself, committed every element of every crime that's set forth in here, but the Department of Justice says we're not going to charge him. And yet here you are in my courtroom saying that it's a matter of national interest that we not only move forward with these charges, but that we absolutely do so before the November election. It just doesn't jive. And so I think that that's very likely what's going to happen here.
Interesting. I don't know how much effect it will have on the judge in the Trump case. I don't know if a judge is going to ask. I don't know if a judge is going to ask that or not. I'd like another legal opinion on whether the judge would look at it and say, okay, you didn't go after him. You didn't go after him, so we're not going to go after this guy here. Judges, from what I see, normally don't do that. They don't take another case and say, well, that case didn't happen, a case that, they aren't the judge over, and saying, well, since that murderer went free, we're not going to,
Well, yeah,
your prosecution is bogus. Now,
it would be different if the Biden case were like 20 years ago and it set some kind of legal precedent somehow, but that's not what's going on here. So, there are two cases that are going on at the same time, and I'm with you. I've never seen a judge make that kind of consideration. Now, they may apply things that are similar, but in citing the other case, that would seem odd.
I'm not saying the judge might not bring it up as a question. I don't see the judge throwing out the charges against Trump.
Yes, as a cause.
I just, and I say that based on the fact that I don't see the precedent for that. It's not based on the evidence or lack of evidence to back up the charges.
Right.
It's just I just don't. Well, number one, when was the last time you had something like this happen? This is so unusual
really.
to begin with.
Yeah.
You don't have it. But it was interesting that because that was brought up, I think Ratcliffe brought up one of the most interesting points that we discussed a little bit. What they're saying, remember, the special counsel said, look, we haven't looked at the Trump allegations. Now, I'm paraphrasing here. Mm-hmm. We're not involved in the Trump investigation. But the difference, if there would be a difference, and I'm paraphrasing here, is Biden cooperated and Trump did not.
Right.
And Ratcliffe's bringing up saying, well, that's not the judgment of whether you prosecute.
Right. Yeah.
You cooperated. Well, yeah, if you cooperate, well, if you cooperate, if you commit a serious felony and you cooperate, you may have reduced charges, but it's very rare that you get felonies dropped because you confess.
Yeah, an act of that's more of an act of goodwill and consideration for possible, in terms of the prosecutor's office charges, but also possible sentencing.
Unless the only time a prosecutor will say, okay, you're cooperating and we're not going to prosecute is if you get them a bigger guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you get
and as we know, Joe Biden is the big guy.
He is the big guy. Yet literally, he's the big guy.
Yes, and according to Hunter, the big guy.
Yeah, according to his own son, he's the big guy.
We've
right,
all been told. It's in writing. He's the big guy. We know it. He's the big guy.
So, that would be because you can look at it and you go, okay, that's actually bogus from her. Or said, well, because he cooperated. Cooperation has nothing to do with it.
Right.
So you're not going to charge at all?
Right.
And the other guy, because the claim is he didn't cooperate. He's claiming he did. Is negotiations and saying no, not cooperating. There's still a lot to learn from I still believe that's the most vulnerable thing that Trump has. But this may change things from the view of the Department of Justice. Maybe not the judge in the case, but the Department of Justice. And politically, it's huge.
Yeah.
I heard a lot over the weekend. Well, by talking about his mental state, everybody's forgetting about the crimes that he committed. No, they're not.
No.
Because it leads right to it. They're saying he's not mentally capable he isn't mentally capable to stand trial for these serious charges. Well, because that's what it's all about.
Right.
Their special counsel just isn't saying it's not some random reporter or psychologist analyzing Trump from afar.
Right.
These are based on interviews that he actually did. Now, what will happen politically on it? I don't know. But right now, it's not in Biden's favor because they're trying to convince the American public that 3/4 are concerned about his cognitive abilities, that what the special counsel is doing was strictly political.
Yeah, right.
That's a tough sell.
Yeah, it is.
That's a very tough sell.
It is.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And so what happens, this week, you had, again, the president's surrogates out there trying to sell that this was a hit job and everything else from the special counsel. I don't think they're going to succeed in convincing America of it. It's going to be another failed messaging attempt by the president. As we played earlier, CNN was fact-checking him, saying on that speech the other day and said, that's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. You see that, with the it's almost a parody when he came out with his Super Bowl message on shrinkflation of your potato chips package. I mean, you think about it. I mean, you're just like, wow. I mean, you're just like, when I saw that yesterday, I just burst out laughing because I think there'd be a response from a lot of people out there, anybody who's covering politics, going, are you kidding me? Well, by the way, you've been talking about this like crazy. It's not shrinkflation, it's inflation. Your policies are what put it over the top. You were warned not to do by the Obama administration economists what you did. So shrinkflation is inflation.
If you wanted to do that ad and put it out at the Super Bowl, in the Super Bowl, then
it wasn't in the Super Bowl.
It was aside from the Super Bowl. Yeah,
Yes,
it was about the Super Bowl. Basically,
it was the Super Bowl message. Was not an
right.
ad that he
But
ran.
but if you wanted to do that and relate it to the Super Bowl, that's because that's what you're doing. Then, all right, don't put him as the face of the ad. If you want to create some kind of, because what you're trying to do is create some kind of political thought that, yeah, maybe the private sector's doing this. Maybe maybe it's big corporate America, blah, blah, blah. Don't put him in the ad.
Remember, it was an official White House ad.
I know, but if you're
White
trying,
House
but
message, it wasn't. I want to make sure it was not an ad. It was the official statement from the White House on Super Bowl Sunday. It had the emblem of the White House.
Right. Even still, you don't put him in it. You have an ad where you see what's going on with blah 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 blah. Have you ever noticed? You almost do a Seinfeld.
Well,
have you ever noticed that when you open a bag of chips, there's a ton of, this is where Elizabeth Warren was going.
Yeah, but the point is, this is not a PAC putting together or the campaign attacking the businesses.
No, I know that.
This is the White House official message of the president for Super Bowl Sunday.
I know, but you can't.
That was
the
topic.
It goes back to not putting him on the debate stage. Don't put him in this setting either. You're trying to create something for. Basically, you're trying to get the political momentum.
Don't do it.
The political momentum. You could, if you wanted to do the ad, at the very least, don't make him the face of it because it's never going to work for you.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here. As always, we appreciate it. So, how's everybody doing? As for the Super Bowl, I can't talk about it because I didn't see any of it. So I was sound asleep.
Yeah, don't care.
I heard Kansas City won, and I heard there were. I heard that the NFL's rigged.
Yeah,
that's about what
everything's rigged.
That the NFL is rigged, and yet I bet you it could. There's a possibility that last night's broadcast might be the biggest Super Bowl audience of all time, especially since it went into overtime.
Mm-hmm. It's all a plan by the Illuminati,
and so it means the majority of the people that are complaining that the Super Bowl is rigged continue to watch it. If it's rigged, stop watching it.
Look, the Illuminati has you in their hands. They know exactly how to play this whole thing. It's rigged, and more people are watching it. Soon they're going to have control of everybody.
The NF Illuminati.
Mm-hmm. That's right. The No Fun League. And it's going to be no fun, and you're walking right into it. Bunch of sheeple.
You bunch of sheeple eating
smaller potato chip bag eating.
I can't even get it out. Thank you for reading my mind there.
You're buying into it. You keep doing it. Keep doing it. We're the Illuminati. We'll even have the president officially complain about it.
You know what I did?
And you'll keep doing it after that.
This goes back about 6 months ago, and it just popped into my head now since we're talking about shrinkflation. I've seen that beer cans come in smaller cans now, like 8 ounces.
What's the point of that? So you'd have something to drink while you're opening your 12 ounce?
Something to sip. Yeah, I just.
I make a sandwich to eat while I'm making a sandwich. So I kind of get it, but I don't get that.
And Soda Pop does the same thing now, too.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the store the other day, and it's like they all make the shorter 8-ounce cans now instead of the 12-ounce
The
cans.
smaller, they make the 12-ounce too, but they make the smaller ones.
Yes, I make both.
And that's been going on for a long time. I worked in high school, I worked at a grocery store, and the manager of the store, whose husband owned it, she wanted these 10-ounce Coca-Cola bottles and had the vendor guy make sure that at least one of the selections was the 10-ounce Coca-Cola bottle. And that's all she would drink is the 10-ounce. And like the small ones, they even make the smaller, you know how they make, 16.9 and then the 20-ounce, then it goes to whatever it is, 2 liter, 1 liter, whatever. Well, they make a smaller one than they make with the twist cap on it. And so you can get just about any size. But that's a soda. We're talking beer. There's no use for a beer that's only 8 ounces.
Well, it's funny because that's the first thought. I went, 8 ounces? Well, then I'd have to drink 2 beers to basically get the buzz. Well, that'd be a 16-ouncer. But
or does it have 1.5 times the alcohol?
No, I don't think. No, it was the same. It was the same. It was one of the light beers.
Because there are those
just popped into my
the
mind.
IPAs that have a lot of the have higher alcohol.
No, this is one of the. I believe it was because any beer I would even be considering. I didn't buy it, but any beer I'd be considering would have to be, super low carb for me. So it was something like Michelob Light or something like that.
Yeah.
Or I don't believe it was. I never drank Bud Light to begin with. So
yeah. And I don't drink. It's just that anybody who would drink beer, I don't understand the 8-ounce thing.
No,
again,
neither do I. No.
Why? Wine has a higher alcohol content, so you only pour 30 or 40 ounces up per glass. You get one of those Stanley mugs and fill it.
And, well, that's if you expect to get Super Bowl Monday off. Just call it the hangover holiday. That was just amazing over the weekend, though.
Yeah.
The people and I know I start off the show with it, but I shake my head because I even think that some of the people are sarcastic in it.
Right.
Like I was in the one narrative going on. I went, well, no, I want Masters Monday off.
Yeah.
I like golf. I want Masters.
I want every Monday off. Mondays are hard. Just leave it at that, right? Forget about even, drinking or watching a game or, the game lasted almost up until the time that I actually long before the time I normally go to bed. But, this is Mondays. Mondays are hard. Why do we work Fridays? We want Mondays and Fridays off.
I just like number one, there was a lot of sarcasm in there. And number two, why just so the Super Bowl should be on a Saturday so we can rest up on Sunday? And that's when I started thinking. I went, well, wait a minute. How many football games do they have on during the year that go till, after or go up till, 10:45 Eastern time? It's an everyday thing. In fact, a lot of the games go later Eastern.
Right. Yeah.
They've gone later. They'll have 8:20 starts.
Right.
That don't end later.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Super Bowl ends at, Super Bowl ended at 10:45 Eastern, 10:45 Central.
Before your local news time.
Right. Quarter to 9, 9:45 Mountain and 7:45. And so why would people want off? Mm-hmm. Oh, they're all hungover. Well, now it's become an entitlement mentality that we deserve a national holiday because we wish to get as roaring drunk as that one guy at the Phoenix Golf Open that slid down in his belly and was screaming, and they cut off alcohol on Saturday because the crowd was getting too rowdy at the golf tournament.
Yeah. By the way, those are the same people that drink every Sunday. So again, everybody.
But now we need. Now there's a push for a national holiday for drunks.
I could see it.
Are they a marginalized class?
Well, what was it?
Yeah, everybody.
Half of the people that were working from home were during COVID.
We're drinking.
Were drinking. They said every day, right? They were drinking every day during their working hours.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, that's the one thing though. If you can't use the hangover day off because you're already home.
Right. You don't have to drive. You're already there.
But I always just laugh when the conversations start like that on the national holiday, and it's like, well, what is it for? Why? The game doesn't end that late. What's
right?
Oh,
yeah.
You all want to have 20 beers and not go to work the next day because you're hungover.
Right.
So that's like a sense of entitlement.
Right.
Like, this is the way it should be.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, it doesn't work that way. It's life, and you have to do hard things.
And I will say this, the other thing that I find interesting is because in the Super Bowl, the vast majority of the people, their teams aren't in it.
Right.
Well, I got a bunch of my buddies that cheer for a number of teams, all just completely and totally ticked off and angry afterwards. They're angry the whole time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, who did I bring up last week? The character that's always, Becker. Never seen Ted Danson and Becker, always angry. And I'm starting to think that that's a lot of the people that I know now. And they have to keep, because I was noticing it, these people I know that are just, I can't believe it, this and everything, and the NFL sucks, and this, and they're watching the whole thing, and then afterwards all they do is complain about everything, and I'm like, there's just a consistent form of, or consistent level of anger all throughout. I'm like, well, do something else. Do something else to make yourself happy. And I think people like negative drama. There's a number of people that actually like negative drama, or they like creating negative drama, and they like, now, is this because most of my acquaintances are getting old like me? Am I going to end up like that? Right.
I think there's a good potential. I think there is a great potential.
Just always being angry.
Yeah.
24/7 being angry. But I noticed that with the game last night. And it's expected because most people, their teams aren't in the Super Bowl. Only the, Kansas City and San Francisco.
Is it just another excuse to drink? I mean, if you're a Chiefs fan and now you're celebrating, again, after the game, let's just say that. Okay, now they're going to start drinking heavily after the game, like they didn't during the game. They were sober up until the win and the trophy presentation, and then they decided to get drunk. That's one thing, but everyone calling for a national holiday. Yeah, sorry.
Those are the people those are the people that and somebody actually put in, so much of our taxpayer dollars go in to build these stadiums. We can't afford to go. All we want to do is enjoy the Super Bowl and have a couple of cocktails afterwards. Why can't we have the day off?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I understand why the country is where we are right now with that logic.
Well, then in that case, we just should have a National Morons Day off. Because if that's the way you're going to see it, then, okay, great. But just pick your stupid day, and if it's the day after the Super Bowl, then that you get to take your more, and nobody can ask any questions. It'll be like the Purge, those movies where you get to murder and do everything and no questions asked for 24 hours. All right, everybody gets one moron day per year. By the way, it's not paid.
Oh, it's not a paid holiday.
Not a paid holiday. You get it, but your boss can't ask.
Well,
you can't, you get it, no questions asked.
Well, it would be, remember, because you're not going to get a lot of companies to add that extra holiday. So It would be Congress calling it, so federal employees would have that day off.
Right.
And maybe some states would follow. But in the private sector, nobody's going to be giving you off Super Bowl Monday. That's not going to happen.
No.
But I did like, in all the convoluted logic, the person did connect because they did think, okay, to justify that it should be a national holiday and my company should give me, and I'm sure they're thinking paid time off, not no pay time off, that they're thinking paid time off, that they've somehow convinced themselves I've got something here because my taxpayer dollars go to support stadiums. Therefore, my company should give me a paid day off to get drunk and then recover from my hangover on Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that logic, though. See, we're completely against that because we don't think you need a reason to drink.
Exactly. If you just want a drunk Monday, pick one drunk Monday a year. By the way, interesting note.
One drunk Monday a year.
Yeah, exactly.
A floating hangover day.
Interesting note to wrap it up going into the break. Gary and I have a 3-day weekend coming up this weekend. True story.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. One of the quotes from the weekend, I think Paul Begala said it. I don't know if he said it. No, he said it Thursday. So it would have been Thursday that he said it. He said, look, I'm a Biden supporter, and I slept like a baby last night. Okay, this would have been on Friday. I slept like a baby last night. I woke up every 2 hours crying and wet the bed.
Yeah.
This is terrible for Democrats, and anybody with a functioning brain knows that. Wow.
Okay.
But here's what you do. Instead of calling the press and saying, I am really sharp, you attack the other guy. You know, Joe Biden gave the strategy in 2012. I remember he was vice president. He said, don't compare us to the almighty, compare us to the alternative. So everything with Biden has to be, I'm not great, but the other guy is really damaging and dangerous threat. And that's going to be a really rough, ugly, unpleasant campaign. So there you go.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what Begala would say. Just criticize but he can't do that.
Right.
He can't. Look, he can't get off the teleprompter. He can't debate. He can't speak at all. Even on the teleprompter, he has problems. And
then when he's off when he's off the teleprompter, he's defiant at every turn. He denies everything.
And then the things that he actually believes and is doing suck.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, but that's the reality.
There is no win.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hey, it's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, going through some other stuff here.
Yeah, things and stuff.
Actor Michael Rapaport has admitted that he helped spread the left's Trump's Charlottesville very fine people hoax, saying he was wrong to have promoted the lie. He was speaking on a podcast. He said one thing about Charlottesville that I ranted about, and I was wrong. When you see the full quote, that wasn't what he said. Wow. And he's been quite vocal lately, has he?
He
Has he
really
not?
has gone on some rants. I first noticed, I think a lot of people first noticed when he was talking about the thefts that were going on, and he was focusing on, I don't know how much of it he filmed with his phone. I know he was showing some things from his neighborhood in New York. Again, this is actor Michael Rapaport, and he would put stuff on social media about what was going on, the big massive thefts that were going on at CVS, I think is the one he focused on. I don't know how much of I can't remember how much of an incident he filmed or if he was just down there after it happened. That I don't recall, but he was really ranting about that, saying, we can't go on doing things like this. And I don't know if there was anything on his social media about him kind of shifting away from the far left before that. But that's really where people started to notice his behavior, Rapaport's behavior on social media. And then going on some rants, about the left and things, just these insane things with the insane left. And you just have to keep in mind, though, that Rapaport wasn't just somebody that was on the left. He wasn't just somebody who agreed with the left. He was very vocal, as he mentioned in the podcast, as an activist on the left, helping to create a lot of the craziness that we see out there today. But he is one of, I don't know, maybe just a few on the left that I can recall now saying, hey, I was wrong in doing this. At least he's doing that. That's something that Bill Maher, as far as I know, and maybe Bill Maher did it and I didn't see it, but Bill Maher hasn't even done that. Bill Maher's on the left. He tries to tell you he's an independent. He's not. And I think we have to be careful about, labeling people as, conservative this, conservative that, if they happen to agree with conservatives or if they happen to be, in this case, pro-Trump now, apparently. I don't know how I should also qualify it with some comments from Michael Rapaport a few months ago. And that was, he had some choice words for what he was calling Trump. We can't repeat those on the air at that time, but saying, I'm still going to vote for him over Biden if it comes down to those two. And so I don't know that he's actually pro-Trump. It just, he said he's going to vote for him over Biden because of the craziness on the left. And now on this podcast, it could be one of those things where he is eventually going to be fully evolving into a Trump supporter and believes he has it wrong about the guy altogether. I don't know. I can't speak for the guy. But it's interesting because it is a growing number of individuals who are clearly recognizing what's going on the left. That's job number one, or that's the first part of, rather, the changing of the hearts and minds in today's environment. And that's what has to happen. It's something that I think, and you and I have talked about this, that the GOP has been very, almost reluctant, unable, or they have the inability to do this. I don't know if they're not able to do this or not. They certainly haven't demonstrated their ability to change hearts and minds for the better, and that's one of the greatest concerns I think I have going forward. However, it shouldn't be just the party now, they should be great at it, but everybody, these conversations, everybody in the ranks, the rank and file people should be having these conversations about bringing these minds around. The far left, radical, insane people are not ever going to convert. But that's not who you're targeting.
Well, when you look at, for example, let's just take a look at and we'll have some audio coming up from her in just a moment. But Tulsi Gabbard, who was a Democrat. Remember when she ran for the Democratic nomination?
Right.
But you hear her talk, and you're just like, oh, is she a Republican?
Right.
She's from one of the most liberal states in America.
Oh,
Hawaii.
yeah. Hawaii is so blue.
Rapaport said that he will not be voting for Biden. He will not be voting for Harris. He will not be voting for Gavin Newsom. He said that in the podcast. He had previously floated the possibility of supporting Trump in a recent YouTube video.
Right, what I just mentioned. Yeah.
Right, he didn't say at the moment, but he won't support any of those people. When you look at, though, when you see, and this is the one thing that you and I said is different, and something as political consultants, we would sit there and put our heads together if we're advising a political party and say, you've got to do something. You know, this is how I'd start it, Eric. You have to do something when you had people like Michael Rapaport saying, you know, and he was spreading all the lies. And what he's coming out and saying, I was spreading lies. This wasn't the truth about Trump. And it makes a difference.
Right.
You know, here. And, you know, you and I have always talked about, you know, who are the true racists? Well, who is the party that practices identity politics? And by the way, how long have I've been saying that? 30 years maybe? I've never had one person, not one Democrat ever. Nobody's ever come up to me and said, what you're saying is untrue.
Right.
Because Democrats own identity politics. They judge people by groups and not individuals. Where the hell do you think racism comes from? This isn't rocket science. We all know where it comes from. You don't judge people as individuals. You judge them from a particular demographic. That's where racism comes from.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the thought for slavery was not, that particular individual who happens to have dark skin is inferior to me based on their character and their work ethic or whatever. It's everyone with that particular skin color is inferior to me.
Mm-hmm. That was their thought. Yeah.
That was their thought. I want to make sure people get I don't believe that. When I say me, I don't mean me. I was projecting.
Right. But that was, you know, you look at where we are today, and I had a conversation with a younger individual, roughly 40 years old, and had a conversation over the weekend with that person, and he was talking about a conversation he had with someone else on the left, and talking about Second Amendment rights and what's going on with the border and everything else. And it's interesting because his family from San Diego and really he had to get out. They had to get out of California because it was just getting too crazy. And I said, well, yeah, I've often said that at some point you can't afford to stay, whether it's the cost of living or the rules and regulations or whatever it is. And San Diego's beautiful. I mean, it's just a gorgeous town. But California it's just becoming one of those places where it's a matter of when, not if, for a lot of people. And the mindset that's going on right now, and he recognized the mindset of what he said, kids, and he said not the 18, 19, but 28, 30. And it's funny because to me he was a kid. He's a kid, being about 20 years younger than me. And those are the things that you look at of, okay, what's going on with each generation, right? What is the mindset? What are those observations now that are changing their hearts and minds or shaping their hearts and minds as voters, but also, people living in a community. If you're living in a community and you want something, eventually the way to change it is, to become active about that, which is, number one, to vote, and then to have the conversations and everything else. And the Rapaport thing is interesting because it has you wondering, and we've been wondering, how far that pendulum on the left goes. It can only go so far. When you talk about introducing ideas to 5- and 6-year-olds of a sexual nature, from us, our generation, you and I have talked about it before, you had to go home and with a form for your parents to sign for it to be okay for them, for the teacher in biology to address and teach about male genitalia versus female genitalia, which is basic biology. All that had to be, every bit of it, had to be approved by the parents, every step of the way. As kids, we would giggle, but they wouldn't even go any further without you having that form in your hand and then taking it home. They made a big deal to hit the brakes, hand you that form, and then tell you why it was important for your parents to be involved. Today, with the left, that's off the table. And if your child wants to have mutilation surgery, irreversible surgery, and you don't support that, then there's the thought here in the States and movement toward that where the state would take control of your child, at least temporarily, and you don't have any say-so in that. That kind of stuff will change hearts and minds forever.
Well, what I would want to look into is, and you had mentioned, we had talked about, Barry Weiss, and remember, Barry Weiss often called herself a liberal who was against the liberal, what do you call it? I can't think of that. Let me just see if I can find it here somewhere. What they actually called it? I forgot what she called us, like a liberal against liberal excesses or whatever, especially the cultural excesses. But when she was with the New York Times, one of the first things she talked about was this whole thing about cultural appropriation.
Right.
And we've said, well, that's ridiculous. You should want to. We talk, for example, on music and, people that we look at different artists out there. Brian Setzer, for example, that took basically punk rockabilly and combined it with big band. Mm-hmm. You look at that just for an example, or Aerosmith with the rap video or whatever, that, taking and sharing, and expanding on different cultures, cultural immersion instead of cultural appropriation. You can't touch another culture unless you're that culture. Right. And she said, that's ridiculous.
Right.
We should be blending everything. Everything we do should be, you can keep your culture, but if somebody wishes to blend it, that's what we should be doing. You shouldn't be saying everybody is separated by this. She understood that cultural appropriation is a part of identity politics.
Right.
But, and so I think, though, when you see, for example, like her and Matt Taibbi and Schellenberger and all those, I think really going in and seeing the censorship, because she was talking something ideologically speaking when she was with the New York Times and talking about cultural appropriation. But when you get to the censoring and when they saw what the government was doing and how involved they were and the FBI involved in pressuring the private sector social media to censor the opposition, I think that's when it went beyond for many of them. Just ideologically speaking, we like to see this in the cultural wars to what in the hell is going on with this party that claims they're about democracy and they're the biggest bunch of fascists out there.
Right.
I think that's what changed them. You look at a Rapaport and you see everything. The whole New York City thing, he said, I think it was a YouTube video after they let the migrants go who beat the police officers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then get bail. He goes, that's it. I'm voting for Trump. I think that was one of the videos where he said that. And so you're looking for that trigger because there's still, I know Democrats, I go, how can you vote for a party that does this? Will you vote for Trump? Well, yeah, look, I don't have to like Trump, but it's where does he stand on the issues? You start bringing up the issues. They don't want to hear it.
Right.
They don't even want to get into the discussion. They just hate him. So you can start it on the issues and they'll start agreeing with you and go, well, Trump agrees with this, Biden agrees. Yeah, but I think the Democratic Party will eventually change. Well, they keep saying that. They all understand that where the Democratic Party is going is extremely radical. The majority of Democratic voters do not believe that a man can be a woman if a man says so.
Right.
They don't believe it. The majority of human beings don't believe that. The vast majority don't believe that.
Right.
They know it's ridiculous, but they go along with it. And their point is, well, we're still going to vote because the Republican Party is still too radical. And you go, where? They really can't answer that question.
Well, that's it. And as long as you keep voting that way, because now, and we've said it, especially after October 7th, You vote that way, you're a radical. If you vote especially for one of the candidates that is anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, then you own that stance. If that's who you are, then that's how you vote. But if you say, well, no, but I support them on other things, sorry, you're going to own that. Because Trump's agenda was about what? Expanding the economy, really.
Mm-hmm.
And we can have some questions, and back and forth about tariffs and what works. But ultimately, that was his agenda. The Biden agenda goes much deeper and much, much darker.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. In order to manage speed, you need to understand the 4 factors involved in stopping a vehicle. Perception distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. The perception time for an alert driver is approximately 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot hits the brake pedal. The average driver has a reaction time of 3/4 of a second. Brake lag distance also needs to be taken into account. When operating a vehicle with air brakes, it takes about half a second for the mechanical operation to take place. Finally, braking distance is the distance it takes a vehicle to stop once the brakes are applied. Braking distance is affected by the weight, length, and speed of the vehicle, as well as road condition. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You had a number one. I think Podesta said it. Bill Maher said it. That it's really a problem that Biden didn't do the Super Bowl interview because normally that's milquetoast.
Yeah,
but he can't.
Right.
He just can't.
You can't put him on.
Yeah, he can't sit down and do any type of interview.
Yeah.
unless it's completely and totally rehearsed.
Yeah, it would. It would have to be. I mean, there's, and then you would have to make it to where it's edited and put out, and that there's nothing significant that's left on the editing room floor, because then that would get out. Doesn't matter who the news group is. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So there's no way to really do that without it being bad, so you just say, okay, we won't do one.
Soon, they'll be going into a deep dive. Make time. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, so the one point that I wanted to make was when you just look at right now, where do you go politically? You know, everything that's happened, it's going to be interesting to see what happens this week, but where do you go politically? And I would say one thing, if I'm a political consultant for the Republican Party, one of the things I'd look at and say, look at all the Democrats that have, in essence, rejected the Democratic Party. And you can use Robert Kennedy as one of those people that has rejected what's going on in the Democratic Party. You can say Tulsi Gabbard. We'll hear from her in just a moment. You know, she's another one. You go then to the Twitter files people that were all Democrats, and you go to the Barry Weisses and the Michael Schellenbergers and the Matt Taibbis that, you know, were, and I think were genuinely frightened when they saw the censorship effort from the federal government on across the board, from COVID to protecting Hunter Biden, by everything that was involved in there, and the links, as they say, they believe exist between the federal government and the social media organizations and the media in general to censor, and number one, the Hunter Biden thing, which we saw, which was obvious when that happened, but also all the COVID information.
Right.
Because that's when COVID was one of the times where the Democrats stood on, stood on the whole misinformation, disinformation, that it was all coming from their opposition, the people that were questioning what was going on. And we go to October of 2020 and the Great Barrington Declaration that came out that said, everything you're doing is wrong. And they were just eviscerated, those scientists, for that.
Right.
And we had no idea whether they were Republican, or we had no idea what their, political ideology was. And now we know that the vast majority of what was done during COVID and the vast majority of what we were told was inaccurate.
Yeah.
And if you tried to question it, you were viewed as putting out misinformation. And as we have stated, and finally I think people are finally see it, the biggest producer of misinformation right now in the United States, because they've got the Senate and they've got the White House, but it's the Democratic leadership. That's where the most disinformation is coming out from right now in this country.
Because they treated the COVID stuff like it, because really it was only about a theory for most people. Hey, here's the lab leak theory.
Right.
And then you looked at things about it. So if you were to take Schellenberger, Taibbi, Barry Weiss, what they learned at the Twitter file thing before they learned it, and then just said, we believe this was going on at Twitter, and then thrown out some things that were factual, that we know are factual now, as facts to them, not known, no proof, nothing. To them or anyone else, they would go, you've been watching too many movies. That wasn't going on. That's not going on at Twitter.
Yeah.
They don't have a whole group of former FBI people there. They don't have you're watching way too many movies. Mm-hmm. This is not, and that's kind of the way they treated the whole lab leak theory. And one of the breaks in the ice was Jon Stewart on his best friend's late night TV show. Keep in mind, his best friend there, Stephen Colbert, wouldn't have had that late night TV show if not for his job with Jon Stewart at The Daily Show. And they're sitting there, and Stewart makes, in a very funny way, the obvious point of, well, why wouldn't we consider that? And that you didn't even have to go down any rabbit holes. The Twitter file thing was rabbit holes. If you had said, well, the FBI has people, has agents in parking lots taking down the license plates of parents that are at meetings, school board meetings, it would have been, yeah, okay, thanks a lot, X-Files. But then we learned it from whistleblowers. All of these things where the left, where so many things are left in the abstract, and the left is doing them, well, you and I still get that. When we talk to people about Hillary and the Russian hoax. When you walk through that, It sounds like an elaborate movie.
Yeah, it does.
Because it was the Clintons leading it. It was very sophisticated in nature. But you tell people about it that aren't up to speed on it and don't know anything about it, and their eyes glaze over.
And they're like, what are you talking about?
And so, this is when things start to come undone, and some on the left start to learn them and see them for the first time. Michael Rapaport, Barry Weiss. As you mentioned, I think we can throw in Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi and people, that I believe those people are critical thinkers, but they were tied to, the certain ways of thought and a thought process, and probably dismissed a lot of things along the way. It's easy to do if you're not going to get too involved. It took a lot to keep up with the Russian hoax thing. It took a lot to keep up with that. It was years in the making, years in the carrying out of that, and years really in the educational process of learning about it.
I'll also throw a Bill Maher in there. Not that he has moved as far as they have, but he's thinking, especially on identity politics. Even though he was a promoter, right. he doesn't even realize that when it comes to conservative blacks, he has practiced identity politics in the past. But you can tell it's going through his head. This isn't the Democratic Party that he grew up with,
right? Because
if he's around my age, and I believe he is, then he understands what the Democratic Party used to be and what liberalism used to be versus liberalism of today.
Right, exactly.
Liberalism of today, and that's why, we say, well, what's setting off all these people to look and go, okay, because, you see it in Joe Manchin, you see it in cinema, Tulsi Gabbard. In fact, right now, one of the things we talk about is the fact that the Democratic Party keeps telling you we're trying to protect democracy and the Republicans are trying to take it away, when obviously they're doing something absolutely unconstitutional by these attorney generals trying to, kick Trump off the ballot based on something that is obviously just a cursory reading of the 14th Amendment. You look at it and you go, well, this doesn't apply to you. It applies to Congress.
Right. Yeah.
You got no business being in here whatsoever.
Right.
And so the people that are screaming it's like racism. What we finally found out, what America finally is starting to realize, is that when people scream racism, and they as a political party practice identity politics where they judge people as officially by the group that they're in, not as individuals, and they promote it, and they accuse you of being a racist, you ought to look at the fact that they are the ones that judge people by groups and not individuals, and they're calling you a racist.
Right.
And so that's the first time. Oh, you're a racist. You're a racist. Wait, you're the racist because you think that way. I don't think you might think I think that way, or I'm worse than you because you already practice identity politics and you judge people by the group that they're in. I don't.
Right.
And you and I, that was a evolution for us one time when we go, why is it the first thing out of their mouth is that they're calling us racist for any opinion we have? And it was like, oh, duh.
Right.
That's how they think.
Right.
And because they practice, if you're a Democrat and you practice identity politics and you judge people by groups, oh, what? There's a black person. They're throwing out conservative thought. They're not really black.
Right.
That's racist. You're saying that black people all should think the same, and critical race theory, the exact same thing.
Yeah. I mean,
whites think this way, blacks think this way. You're the bigot.
Right.
And you're sitting on your high horse calling somebody else a racist and a bigot, while in plain sight you're promoting your racism.
I think one of the biggest hurdles was always going to be the parents. Going to war with parents, because you just touched on something, critical race theory. Remember when you had, it was a number of mixed race marriages, the parents showing up saying, wait a minute, you're teaching our kids that mom is this and dad is that. And that it can't be changed, and it's absolute boom across the board. How dare you teach my kids that? And those are the things that you look at. And, of course, when we get into the liberal transgender movement and teaching kids sexualized content starting at the age of 5 and that kind of indoctrination, which shows you the desperation of the left. They know that they have to get in control of these children's minds at an earlier age. It's not just enough to start shaping them as adolescents and then through college. It has to be at the age of 5. And then it has to be, well, if the kids go home and say something to their parents, because, they're going to tell their parents, and their parents don't agree with it, then we take the parents' rights away. I mean, this is how radical it has become, and it really is. That was always going to be the firewall, and I'm grateful for that. It's something the left couldn't see coming, I guess, or didn't count on it. And it could be a number of parents that have voted left for a long time that saw it and said, whoa, hit the brakes here.
Right. But when we talk about all this, if I'm a consultant to the Republican Party, I'm like, give me all your data from independents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's going on here where you see all these, all these people, and it's having an effect, because if it's having an effect, if you see the number of liberal journalists that now are looking and rejecting liberalism, and there's a number of them out there. Then you see Michael Rapaport, you see Tulsi Gabbard, you see Kirsten Sinema, even though they still have liberal ideas, and so does Manchin. They look at the radical left and go, you're the ones that are controlling it. And if you actually believe, that we're a nation of critical race theory and liberal transgender activist movement, and the government deciding what products we buy, and the government getting us into unsustainable debt, that's the way to go to build a sane country, well, then you're nuts. And so I would look at what changed those people. What is it? What are independents actually thinking? One of my biggest mysteries today is I really don't know what independents are thinking, and I really don't know what moderate Democrats are thinking. I don't know what's in their mind. Right. And I don't think that they're polled. I'm sure the political parties are doing polling. That's what I would do right now if I was a Republican consultant. Where do independents stand? What are the buzz issues that will set them off? You know, we know inflation's out there. We know that without question. We know
the border.
The border. What else? And how do we package it into a message that's slam dunk?
Right.
That's what I'd be thinking right now. And coming up, we'll hear from Tulsi Gabbard, because she talks about the Democratic Party versus democracy, where they're the ones promoting these incredibly authoritarian ideas and accusing the other side. Right. And she's a lifelong Democrat.
Yep.
So we'll get to that and more coming up. 866-90-RED-I.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, so it will be an interesting week coming up. I just don't know what's on. You wonder, because Republicans are meeting over this.
Right.
The whole special counsel thing, then the president's reaction. Number one, I think they're probably going to announce that they want the special counsel to testify before the House.
Yeah.
That's going to happen because they want him on record. Because I think they're going to want, we want the transcripts. The president is stating that what you're saying is untrue and did not happen. Did it happen?
Yeah, because it really comes down to this. Just imagine, benefit of the doubt, that the special prosecutor is putting falsehoods in the report. Well, we need to know that, too.
Yes. Right.
You're not going to get the president to testify on this, so you're going to, and you should always get the special prosecutor in front of you. But now there's a even more reason to do that, because you could say, well, they just want to, take it and, all right, well, wait a minute. No, there was a couple of huge findings. The president did commit a crime, but he's on to stand trial. So we need to know more.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.